Hello, everybody, and welcome to SQL on the Edge. This is episode 15, Cosmos DB Indexing Fundamentals. I'm Warner Chavez, SQL Server MCM, Microsoft Data Platform MVP. Make sure you visit us at pythian.com. So the topic for today is going to be Cosmos DB indexing because I think it is very interesting what the Microsoft team has done in terms of how indexing works on Cosmos DB. So the main goal that the team had is that basically Cosmos DB just works out of the box. You can load the data and immediately start querying it, and it will give you good performance right away. The way this is achieved is by having indexing automatically set to every single field in a document. So this is great for that plug and play type of experience that it just simply works, but you're also going to be consuming storage and you might be paying performance price for indexing so many fields. So the nice thing here about how it was set up is that you don't have to manage indexing if you don't want to, but if you do, you can micromanage it to your heart's content, right? So you can pick specific fields and specific paths of your documents, and you can set those to be indexed specifically. Okay, so that is something that is very important. It doesn't mean that they took all the control away from you. It just means that by default, they'll make it as easy as possible to have a robust indexing. And if you want, you can go ahead and micromanage it. Also, they implemented different consistency modes. So if you, for example, are okay with having eventual consistency in your queries, you can have an indexing mode that basically updates the indexes behind the covers asynchronously. It's what's called lazy indexing, and that will actually have a really big impact on how quickly your writes are done to your Cosmos DB database. And we'll go and check out that out on the demo in a little bit. Finally, something else that I really like is not only that indexing changes are done online, but they're done with no performance impact. And this is something that DBAs and SQL Server pros are really going to appreciate, because we always know that our indexing routines for maintenance are going to consume a lot of resources. They're going to consume CPU, they're going to consume storage, and so on. Well, the nice thing about Cosmos is that if you do any indexing policy changes, they do not come out of the pool of request units for your collection. So if you have 1,000 request units that are used to query and write in your collection, if you do an indexing change, your 1,000 request units are not going to be impacted. You're still going to have those same 1,000 request units that you can consume even while the indexing policy is being changed under the covers. So let's jump into the demo. We're going to check out where you can change the indexing policy in the Azure portal. I'm going to show you how easy you can change the indexing policy on C# client. And finally, we're going to see the impact with a demo utility that I have for Cosmos DB. Okay, I'm connected here to my Azure portal and I have a Cosmos account already open here in the portal. And if you guys can see, I have a collection already created. It's called machines. It has in a database called factory, and it has a throughput of 400 request units per second. So in terms of indexing, I'm just going to show you guys where the settings are for indexing here in the portal. It's very easy. You just have to scroll down here in this panel and go to settings, and that is going to place us inside the scale and settings tab for the particular machines collection. Now here you guys can see, if I go down, I have the indexing policy JSON. So we can just go over here what the fields are. The indexing mode, like I mentioned, it's either consistent or lazy or none. The automatic, it says true. You can set automatic to false if you want to. What that does is basically enable manual indexing. And what that means is that if a document you don't specify when you create it that you want it to be indexed, then it's not going to be indexed. Okay, I think that's a little bit too much micromanagement for most people. So I think most people will just sometimes will play with the paths and disable different fields or disable different subdocuments, but they will not be setting it to manual indexing and then just selecting some specific documents to be indexed. The option is there, however, if you need it, then you can take advantage of it, right? And then in this case, I'm just using the default, the policy. So if we scroll down a little bit here, we can see the path is just set to everything, and then we have the different type of indexes enabled right now in my collection. I have both numbers and strings set to range indexing with the default precisions that are provided by Cosmos. You can also see spatial there with data type for points if you are using the spatial functions that come built in with the document mode of Cosmos DB. Okay, so this is very easy. If you want to change it, you can change it here. If you do make a change, you can just save it, and that's it. Now I'm just going to go into my demo utility, and we're going to see how this looks. So we're going to use, let's say, 4 machines, and this, again, they're threads. I'm just simulating like if it was machines writing into Cosmos DB, and we're going to do 10 calls per second, and we're just going to run one iteration, and we're going to see what happens here. So if I just run the status of my client, we can see that the current indexing policy says it is consistent. Okay, so let's run a write test. I'm just going to start write. Now we can see it finished with the 4 simulated machines, and a certain amount of request units were consumed. In general, at the end of the test, we had 13 successful calls done to Cosmos DB, right? So now what we can do is I'm going to run a command here that I have on my demo utility called flip indexing, and this basically what it's going to do is to change from consistent to lazy. Okay, so if I go to status now for my collection, I can see the indexing policy now says lazy, right? And now let's see what happens if I rerun that same test. If I do a start write, for example, here I can see that the amount of successful calls went up. Now I have 17 successful calls compared to the previous I had, which were 13, right? So indexing in lazy mode actually gives us a boost here of how many more queries we were able to push through, right? So we're talking about 4 queries out of what we had was about 13 before. So we're looking at about a 20-25% improvement just by changing to lazy. If your workload is a very write heavy, then this percentage could be bigger. However, you have to offset it with the downsides of using lazy indexing, which is mainly that the queries will all be eventually consistent. Okay, and then finally, um, just to show you guys, for example, the test query that I'm using in my demo utility, you guys can see here I do a select and I select some fields from the machines, and I actually use this machine name field to do a search through a parameter, and I do not need to specify the index to be able to use the index correctly for that machine name field, right? I just have to run my SQL and that's it. This is very important because, like I mentioned before, some competitors do not do this. They actually require you to call out your indexes explicitly. And then finally, I'm just going to show you guys what it looks like on Visual Studio. Here, my C# code to switch the indexing policy. It's very, very simple. Once you have your client connected to Cosmos, you just basically get a handle on your database object. Then once you have your database object, you get the handle through the document object, and then you get that document collection. And once you have the collection object, is very, very simple. The collection object has a member called indexing policy, and indexing policy has an indexing mode, and then you can set it to consistent. In this case, I am flipping them back and forth. So if it's set to consistent, I set it to lazy, and if it's set to lazy, I set it to consistent. Once I have the setting that I want, I simply replace that document collection settings through the client directly. Okay. Okay, so I hope the demo gave you a good overview of how Cosmos works with its indexing policy. We checked out the portal, we checked out the C# code, and we checked out that demo utility. You see, it's very easy to go and change the policy and just save it. There is a big impact, so if you are okay with having eventual consistency with the indexing, it might be a thing to consider because it's definitely going to make your writes a lot faster. Something else that I showed on the demo is I just displayed a simple query that I used for my demo utility. Unlike other competitors, Cosmos DB does not require you to explicitly call out your indexes. This is not the same for some of the other NoSQL products, for some of the other cloud providers. So definitely do your research before you start deploying any sort of new application on any single provider that you are going to pick. So a very simple experience that the Microsoft team has created. Only a few settings that you can manipulate, but very powerful settings, and really you can get really powerful results. And the fact that it's all online and it doesn't take anything away from your request unit pool just means that it's really 24/7 production. Anytime you can do your indexing changes with zero impact to the application. Okay, so hopefully you've enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.